the number 30,000. Now, I know none of that makes sense right now, but let's roll with it. All right, so I started my first company when I was 21. I was born in a Chili's. Yeah, and my co-founder, Andrew Crick, and I had never done this before. So we think starting a company is a big deal. We're like, well, do you need to wear a suit to City Hall, or do we need to go get like a seal so we can stamp all of our important documents? And it turns out you can just go online and fill out a form and you're done in like 2 minutes. So it's a little anticlimactic, but we were in business and got our onion strings, and we decided that our company was going to make a new kind of online course for the SAT. And most kids back then were using these old school like 800-page books, and the other online courses weren't very good. So we thought this was great. We brushed off our SAT vocab and we called it Accolade, which means an honor or an award. And well, actually, we didn't call it Accolade. We called it the Accolade Group LLC because we thought that sounded much more impressive. So it was great. I stop at Staples on the way home, and I get some cardstock. And if any of you ever start a company someday, you'll realize that the first order of business is first you Photoshop a logo, and then you print out a bunch of business cards that say founder on them. And the next thing you do is you hand them out at conferences, and you practice telling girls, well, why, yes, I do have a company. It was awesome. But actually, the best part was learning all kinds of new things. So I lived in my fraternity house every summer, and up on the 5th floor, there's a room with a ladder that goes up to the roof. And I had this nylon green folding chair, and I bought all these books off of Amazon, and every weekend, I'd drag all that stuff up to the roof, and I'd read about all these new things, about sales, about marketing, about strategy, management, all these things I knew nothing about. And so it wasn't exactly my plan to get my MBA on the roof of Phi Delta Theta. That's kind of what happened. So it was all good for a while, but a couple years later, things started going downhill. And it just felt like it got harder and harder to get things done, and at some point, something in me just snapped. I'm like, my God, I just can't deal with any more math questions about like parallel lines or isosceles triangles, or like the 2 trains leaving Memphis at 3:45. And of course, I'm like, oh God, there's something wrong with me. And I felt guilty because I was unproductive. And starting a company had been my dream for a long time. And so I remember this moment where I thought, well, maybe I don't have what it takes after all. So I took a little break. So I don't know if any of you guys study Course 6. But I studied Course 6, Computer Science. And if you're in Course 6, sometimes taking a break means writing a poker bot. And if you haven't played poker online before, basically what happens is you sit for hours and you're clicking buttons, and then you lose all your money. And so all a poker bot does is it lets your computer lose all of your money for you, which is what I did. But I was like fascinated. I was like possessed. I just couldn't stop thinking about this thing. I would think about it in the shower. I'd think about it, waking up in the middle of the night. And it was like the switch went on and I was a machine. And then I remember in the middle of all this, one weekend, Mom and Dad wanted all of us to go up to New Hampshire to have this family weekend together. And I was thinking, okay, well, but I don't want to stop working on my poker bot. So I pull up in my Accord, and I get out and I say, hi, Mom, and then I open the trunk. And next I'm dragging like 100 pounds of all my computer stuff and all these wires into our little cottage on the lake. And I go inside and I look, I'm like, oh, the dining room table's not big enough. So I start rearranging stuff on the stove, like moving the pots and pans around to make room for all my monitors. And my mom comes in and she's like, what the hell are you doing? Well, actually, she was just convinced that I was going to jail. And actually, I'm going to take a second really quick. So actually, I put my mom and dad through a lot. And I'm sure all of us here put our parents through a lot. And so let's all just take a second to thank them, our moms, dads, families, everyone we love who got us here. Thank you. All right, so I was gonna say work on what you love. That's actually not that helpful, right? It's so easy to convince yourself or rationalize that you love what you do. But when I think about it, the happiest and most successful people that I know, they're not just in love with what they do, they're obsessed. And they're not just obsessed, but they're obsessed with solving an important problem, something that really matters to them. I had like dogs growing up. I don't know if you've ever thrown a tennis ball for a dog. But like, you don't even have to you don't have to throw it. You lift it up, and like the dog gets these like crazy eyes. And then you throw it, and like the leash snaps, and they go bounding off, and they're like plowing through, whatever's in their way to get it. That's what my friends feel like. And that's what I hope all of you find, because I have other friends too who work hard, and they're paid well in their jobs, but they complain and they feel like they're like shackled to a desk. So the problem is, a lot of people don't find their tennis ball right away. Even for me, don't get me wrong, I love the SAT. I love me a good standardized test as much as the next guy. But like being king of SAT prep, like I'm not sure what kind of hat you get for that. But that wasn't going to be my tennis ball. And so what scares me is that both Dropbox and this poker bot started out as distractions. Like that little voice in my head was telling me what to do all along, and the whole time I'm telling it to shut up so I can get back to work. Like I almost missed it. But sometimes that little voice knows best. So it took me a while to get it, but I realized the reason why the people that work the hardest don't work hard because they're disciplined. They work hard because solving and working on an exciting problem is fun. So after today, it's not just about pushing yourself. It's about finding your tennis ball. It's about finding the thing that pulls you. It might take a while, but until you find it, keep looking and keep an ear out for that little voice.